Welcome everyone. We're going to call this meeting to order. This is Thursday, November 12th, Police Oversight Board. Eric, would you please pledge allegiance?
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Okay, approval of the agenda. First of all, I'd like to move item number 9 to item number 6, which means that after public comments, excuse me, after public comments, we'll go into a session with our council for a few minutes, and we'll be right back. Mark Baker is our council. So we're going to move item number 9 to item number 6. Okay. Is there any other changes to the agenda?
With that change, I move its approval.
I second.
It's been motioned and seconded to approve the change. All in favor, vote yes.
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 All opposed have the same right. Majority. Okay. Any public comments? Oh, I'm sorry. This is our approval of our minutes. Should have done this as email.
I move we approve the minutes as written. I move we approve the minutes as written.
Second. It's been motioned and seconded to approve the minutes as written. All in favor vote yes.
Yes.
All opposed have the same rights. Okay, we'll move to public comments. We have 2 for public comments. We're going to hold public comments to at least 5 minutes, if you need that much. Okay. Tony Farrar and Arthur Tannerbon. Am I correct?
Thank you. How long did you say I had?
Well, we're going to give you 5 minutes.
Okay, thank you. Plenty of time. Thank you.
Sorry?
We should go 3.
3? Okay. 3. If you need more.
That's what I thought it was. Okay. Keep track of me. I don't think I'll run that long. Like I said, this is my first time that I've been here, and I've heard that there's a lot of things that need to be squared away with. I'm here to help in any way I can, so please feel free to call on me. I was in the office, the mayor's office, the day that the people came up to deliver letters to the mayor. I've seen a lot of people brutalized that day. APD should be held accountable for that. Mr. Perry should also be held accountable for that. But anyway, I'm here to, I would encourage the people of the city to attend more of these meetings. That way they can't say they don't know what's going on, and if there's something bad they have to say about it, well, they better know what they're talking about before they criticize. The mayor should be required to be at these meetings. That would be a big help. Then he would know what's going on, and instead of pretending like he doesn't know. The people of Albuquerque should not give up their rights. local news media continues to spread a fear factor here, and that should be abolished right away. There are people here that are actual citizens that want to help, but apparently the city has given them a bad name or something. And I was with this lady here during that office, wasn't a takeover, wasn't a storming of the office, but there was a great deal of brutality that I witnessed, and I have PTSD myself from police, and it's a hard thing to get over. But my main point is I would like to talk to this board whenever possible. I'd like to help get this APD problem squared away. There's a lot of people here on this board that probably do not know the stuff that goes down here in the city, and police have to be a lot more transparent than what they are doing now. So, okay, thank you.
All right, thank you. And we're open for suggestions, recommendations.
Well,
Not now, but I mean in the future.
okay. I'll ask later.
Okay, thank you. All right. Arthur?
That just happened.
Arthur Tannerbaum?
Mike's not on.
Thank you. Welcome.
Mr. Chairman, I cannot hear you.
I said welcome.
Good evening, and thank you for your time and your public service. My name is Arthur Tannenbaum. I've gone to a lot of the city council meetings. I know that the Police Oversight Board is independent of the executive branch of government, the mayor's office, and also independent with respect to the legislative branch of government, the city council. Also, there apparently is not any financial influence, so really, in consideration of the way that the Police Oversight Board was created or reformed, I believe it's most valuable in this process of oversight. Excuse me. I do want to mention that my interactions with police officers out in the public are a sharp contrast to times when I've visited the mayor's office upstairs on the 11th floor. There were a couple of times administrative assistants used or abused law enforcement personnel because they got frustrated with me. I was insistent. Sometimes, on another occasion, I was very calm. And the administrative assistant got frustrated because I was not buying the rhetoric or the bum's rush. This is phenomenal to my mind. Anyway, in terms of systemic things, one thing that I would urge the Police Oversight Board to do is to determine how many rank and file police officers are dues-paying members of the APOA union. If I'm not mistaken, up to the rank of lieutenant, police officers can be part of the union, or I believe it's their choice. They can. They can decide not to be dues-paying members of the union. The contract with APOA and the City of Albuquerque government is a very controversial issue. The mayor broke the 2010 contract. The Albuquerque Police Officers Association had a contract for about a year, which ended July 1st. So in terms of patterns and practices and trends, I urge the Police Oversight Board to examine what percentage of rank and file police officers are dues-paying members of the union. Compare that to 5 years ago and or 10 years ago. And that way you have an accurate idea of to what extent the union is indeed representing the rank and file police officers. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for coming. Nora Anaya.
Thank you very much for having us come in here today to speak out to you, to beg you for what we've been getting denied, and that is our voice. We have been talking to the mayor, and he does not talk back. I understand that, or I thought, I was told that Mr. Ginger, Dr. Ginger, said he was going to come because we insisted that he should be a part of gathering information and sharing it, because really, honestly and truly, the only one that can really give you information is the community. We are absolutely ecstatic as to what we have seen here since before we were just getting a complete opposite. I appreciate it greatly. I know that we are having some communication gaps. There are certain things that we need to maybe get in touch with you about, and when I did talk to Dr. Jeanette Baca, was a lot of the community are not educated as to be able to speak and give you their stories as they are. So that is one thing that is very crucial in my mind. Also, if there is a way to get Mayor Berry to come in and at least give you the teeth that you need, which I know was the fact that there was lacking. And the lacking part was the part that the POC had absolutely no opportunity or no investigative powers, no subpoena powers to invite any of the people that had information. And just last but not least, there was one thing that was very crucial. The community was told in 100 words, tell me your story. That can't happen because it doesn't take just 100 words to tell you a detailed story. Thank you so much. I appreciate you, and God bless you. Please hang in there. It's going to be a rough ride.
There you go. Thank you, Nora. Appreciate it. Two things. Arthur mentioned us not answering to the mayor. We don't answer to the mayor or the chief. We're an independent body. So everybody understands that we're the independent of everyone. We answer to the city council. Okay, so and thank you, Nora, for recognizing what we've done. This committee has worked hard over the last 7 or 8 months with subcommittees, putting things together. I think we have a great plan together to get started, and I hope that the community sees the results of our hard work. So thank you again. Right now we're going to go into session with our lawyer, our attorney.
Yeah, that's what we vote that.
And yeah, let's let everybody know. Okay, can we get a vote to do that? Verbal? Yes.
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 Yes. Yes.
So, thank you all. We'll be back in a few minutes. Okay, we're back in session.
The Police Oversight Board has completed its discussion of matters subject to the attorney-client privilege pertaining to threatened or pending litigation in which we may possibly become participants, and therefore I move that we reconvene in open session at this time.
Second?
Good motion and second that we reconvene. Can I get a vote, a verbal vote?
Yes.
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 Yes. Yes.
Thank you. Okay. Right now, we're going to have a short discussion on our NAPO conference that's coming to Albuquerque next year. Director.
Yes, Chair Waits, we have a couple of tasks that we need to perform. We need to form a local conference committee from the board. We need, I think it's clear that myself and our new community outreach person will be a part of that. But we'll need a couple of participants from the board. We're scheduled for a teleconference with Cameron McElhaney on the 17th of November. That's next Tuesday at 9 a.m. Anybody who wants to participate in that teleconference, just email me, let me know, and I'll give you the information so you can call in and participate in the teleconference. But we will need to set up a conference committee from the board and the agency to move forward with any of the other planning and logistics that we're going to need to put into place.
Director, do you want us to do that tonight, or can we email you, or are there volunteers? I'm volunteering myself. Are there volunteers that want to sit on that committee?
I am overcommitted. I'm sorry, I can't do that.
As a member of the,
But I would help casually anytime I can. I just can't commit to anything else right now.
as a member of the outreach committee, I think it makes sense that I be a part of that.
Great.
Chair Waits, I'd also like to remind the board that Joanne Fine, who is not here tonight, expressed interest in being on this committee, and so I will relay this information to her. And as part of the outreach subcommittee, I would also be a member of this planning committee.
May I ask a question about the conference call? How long will that be? Do you have any idea?
Chair Waits and Member Brown, I don't anticipate that it would be longer than about 30 minutes at this point because everything's very preliminary. And I think it will be a confirmation of conversations that we had in Riverside and putting together timelines. The Board of Directors of NACO will be here the first week of January for a period of 3 to 4 days in order to review the site and get a better idea of logistics. And I think most likely the conversation will revolve around that meeting and what we need to have ready for them when they come in January. So your time frame for your policy committee is fine.
Further question, this being a conference call, can we do it with GoToMeeting and stay where we are? Or do we need to come here?
Chair Waits and Chair Board Member Ring, I will provide you the information. You can call in from home.
Okay.
So there's a number and then a conference number to call in, and we'll all just participate by telephone.
Sounds good.
Anything else or any more volunteers? All right, thank you. Okay, was there anything else on the conference?
No, Chair.
Okay, thank you. All right. We're going to have our subcommittee reports. Dr. Baca, first.
Thank you. The Outreach Subcommittee met on Monday, October 26th. During our meeting, we discussed the Community Engagement Specialist position. As I stated in our last meeting, our POB meeting, we identified a short list of 10. At this last meeting, the subcommittee, along with Mr. Harness, discussed each of the candidates and selected 3 candidates who were interviewed on Monday, November 2nd. The committee and Mr. Harness agreed on a qualified candidate who we believe will complement the CPOA and fulfill the expectations of the position. These are my notes from yesterday. We are waiting for the background check to be completed and are hopeful the position will be filled by Monday. And I'm happy to report that the background check has been completed. And I would like to introduce to the board our new community engagement specialist. That's Amanda Bustos, and she is with us today.
Hello, thank you. I'm really excited to be a part of this organization and this committee. I'm from Albuquerque, New Mexico. I grew up on the west side of the city, and it really is just exciting to really be here and representing the community members in my new role as the community engagement specialist. So thank you for that time.
Thank you.
Welcome.
We had a couple of other activities during this last month. Chair Waits and myself attended a luncheon at Dennis Chavez Community Center. The guest speaker was Dr. Ginger, and most of his team was actually in attendance at that luncheon. And it also included Police Chief Eden. Mr. Waits, would you like to say anything about the luncheon, or?
Not really. I thought the luncheon was great.
It was Padrell, so
property, so it was pretty outstanding. I think what Mr. Padrell is doing is good for the community. It was great to have the chief there. Dr. Ginger was there, and some very good questions was asked of both people, and so we had a really good time. Jane Padrell.
Yeah, she was. Yes, it was. I think it was a very worthwhile luncheon. One last thing, then that's all I'm going to have for today. I would like to personally acknowledge Dr. Ring for his outreach efforts. During our last meeting, he shared with us an experience he had at the airport in Denver. And I was reading the Albuquerque Journal, and the story I read in here was the Officer Webster's mother's gratitude toward citizens in Albuquerque. And in the article it said she had a lot of people to thank. There was a man who prayed with her after he saw her crying on the airplane from Denver to Albuquerque. And this was Dr. Ring and his efforts to informally do some outreach. So I want to just thank Dr. Ring for his outreach efforts. Would you like to say anything, Dr. Ring?
Sometimes serendipity comes your way, and I met this lady at the airport, and she was obviously very distraught. She was on her way here to be met by several officers that would take her to the hospital to see her dying son. So we had some prayer.
Thank you. And that's all I have. Any questions from the board for me? Thank you.
Right. Dr. McCoy.
Right, so I'm going to provide sort of a general overview and then dig down a little into details, because I think it's probably important on this committee that's getting kicked off, and that there are so many moving parts to it right now, and I want everybody to understand. And so we met on the 27th, the CRC met on the 27th of October. What we did overall is take a run at working or implementing this new procedure that we introduced last board meeting. And how we did that was by reviewing a specific set of backlogged cases, a specific set, and I'll get to that in the details. And we also talked about a special or distinctive case, which is something that we'll do also in the future. In the future, of course, we'll have with us current cases. So we'll have backlog cases for the time being until that finishes up. We'll do any kind of distinctive case that stands out as needing attention immediately. And then, of course, we'll do the complaints that fall within the regular timeline. So if you remember the presentation last month, it was the P out of Q. We can't do P out of Q yet because nothing that's come in since we've been allowed to work is yet to that point in the investigative process. So we decided to meet each Friday, as you know, each Friday since we met from the full board. The CRC retrieved redacted copies of the incoming complaints. So I go up Friday and look at the redacted copies of the incoming complaints. Previously, as you know, I'd only been picking up citizen letters, drafts of citizen letters, because they're very good in terms of summarizing not only the complaint, but the findings and any kind of other language that might go out to the citizen, telling, you know, how the agency thought of and what the outcomes are. So now we get both the drafted complaint, the drafted citizen letters, and we get them incoming. In addition to looking at the cases, and again, I'll give you details in a minute, we also had some logistical things to work out. So we had to settle on a new location for our weekly meetings. There's a couple of different locations, and then we had to figure out how are we going to publish that, where are we going to put it on the website so that people can know why we're meeting every week and when we're meeting every week. And then, of course, that additional problem of whether, when we do cancel meetings, if we don't need that every single week meeting, we'll always have the midterm meeting, what I'm calling the midterm meeting. How do we do that? And primarily, we had to say, okay, the council, city council on the 19th of October did pass our rules. We have completed all our training. So are we allowing ourselves to move forward on looking at these complaints? And in fact, we voted that we were moving ahead. Now that gets a little complicated in a minute also, but we did talk about cases at this meeting for the first time legally, authoritatively, right? Okay. We also have to give notice to the agency about whether we're canceling the weekly meetings, so we're working with the agency to make sure that we get that to them on time, either a cancellation or an agenda for the next week's meeting. Okay. So the cases that we looked at, because we could look at cases and we needed to find some way to look at backlog cases, we chose a grouping. And what we chose was administratively closed cases. And there happened to be 33 administratively closed cases out of the 130 backlog cases. So that's a good start. And it's also a way to sort of get our wheels turning as far as this goes and how to get things to the board with fairly simple cases, at least cases that can be summarized in 1 or 2 pages so that when they go into Dropbox, you've got a set of 30. You probably won't have 30 in any given month usually, but there's 30 of these. They're simple, they're 2 pages or less. So we decided to practice on those a little bit. We actually we want to get a good bunch out too. I mean, the point here is to get those letters out to citizens. So, and because they haven't had them in so long, we also need to think about how we need to modify those letters to say thank you to people for their patience, and this is what's happened in the past and what we're going to do here. So we further subdivided, and this again is to help us understand how this is going to work in the future. We further subdivided those administrative cases 5 ways. And the way we did that was to say those that are outside of our jurisdiction, outside of the CPOA's jurisdiction. Sometimes they come in that aren't, we just don't have any right to. Insufficient information, there are cases, the complaints that are administratively closed because there is simply insufficient information. It can't be investigated. There are those that, of course, are withdrawn. And often those are withdrawn because of what I call beautiful reasons, right? Someone has gone has taken the incentive to call the complainant, say to them, usually it's a lieutenant or a sergeant down the road, and says, and is able to make basically a modified mediation to say, we're looking at this, how do you feel about it, are we doing what you need, are you satisfied, and we're covering bases in whatever way that the complainant feels comfortable with. Yeah, it's a terrific way. So and I'm calling those withdrew because it's someone that changed their mind about going forward with the entire process. So they're administratively closed. There's one that I'm calling C1A, and this is simply because it's a specific type of complaint that involves an ongoing 6-year neighborhood conflict, to which the complainant has been provided an individual CIT detective. Often, many of those come in a slew, and we've set those aside as administratively closed to be able to look at them for patterns also, without talking about specific neighborhoods. So those are what we look like. Although the CRC believes that those 33 cases are ready to bring to you, so that you can, and we believe that the letters should be sent out. We couldn't do it tonight. And Ed's going to get to that here in a minute, why we couldn't do it tonight. Right, so that's about the overview. And Ed will finish up for us in terms of why we couldn't look at them tonight. I do have to say something particular about the special case because this is what's going to come up fairly often, I think. We can only go with what we know right now. But Mr. Scott Stapol, the lead investigator and the acting ED at the time of my first Friday visit, brought to my attention the fact that there are a set of complaints that demand an investigation of 11 separate officers. And the reason, and those are all infractions related to unregistered or unlicensed vehicles. So this became of particular interest, Mr. Scott Stapol brought to my attention, because they had actually been brought to the CPOA before, they had been brought last year, or a set of them. This was a new set of complaints about the same thing. Same complaint, new set of evidence. So apparently the problem hadn't been solved. The investigation, which was quite a long and involved investigation because of the number of police vehicles that were involved, was completed, was found sustained. Where things got a little tricky is that a formal letter of findings was sent out by us, by the CPOA. Unfortunately, the solution that was described by the previous ED and that was on record and sent to a citizen was a complete fabrication of the solution to the problem. So I want this to illustrate the fact that sometimes there are special considerations in a case that comes in, and that's why we want to see them up front. That's the first little blue star from last month, right? Let's see it right up front. We worked together, the office and I and the acting executive director and the current executive director, to be able to say, we got to withdraw this from the normal course of investigations. We've got to look at this as a special case, knowing that we're always under the wire as far as time goes now, right? The clock's ticking on the CRC all the time. But collaboratively, we were able to say, these would be 11 new investigations of officers that we know have nothing to do with the problem. It's not a personnel issue, right? We've been asked to do 11 separate investigations about cars that are unlicensed, and we've already found last year not only that it is indeed happening, but that the officers have no responsibility to this. So instead of doing 11 investigations times 3, because you have to investigate the officers, any witnesses, all the rest of it, we pulled it out and began working in tandem with APD on ways to solve the problem itself. There was no question of any discipline to officers or even officer involvement. So the most important piece of this is that in working in tandem, we were able to investigate corrections to the fleet. We have been resolving very efficiently, I think, the question of unregistered vehicles. And please understand, I've been given permission to talk about a specific case because we're not talking about specific officers, right? And Assistant Chief Huntsman, who I've had the pleasure of meeting with twice now. The other two were an emergency in one meeting, and the fourth coincided with Officer Webster's funeral, at which we were provided a VIP place. I want you to know, an important event. Assistant Chief Huntsman has compelled the fleet manager to ensure that all new vehicles after release from the shop that retrofits vehicles, which is where all the time was going, and as they were being retrofitted, he has compelled the fleet manager to ensure that all new vehicles will now go directly back to the dealership after being retrofitted for a new temporary tag. That solves part of our problem. He has also directed all supervisors to be responsible for inspecting their people's vehicles monthly. So each supervisor is responsible now for making a monthly check that all police vehicles in use are properly registered and licensed. Further, he is collecting statistics for us regarding to an alleged massive backlog in Santa Fe. So there are apparently problems with motor vehicles in Santa Fe. We're trying to check that out to see how much of a problem it actually is, and if we actually have to get involved with MVD. But the brilliance is that the APD is now helping us collect those statistics. He believes, as of this afternoon, Assistant Chief Huntsman has ordered all officers who have not picked up new available licenses. So there's a set of available licenses that APD simply hasn't retrieved, the officers haven't retrieved. He has compelled them to today by 2 o'clock, so that's a few hours ago, that they will have picked up those licenses and made sure that they are on their vehicles. So there's a ton of oversight going on now that we wouldn't have expected except for our involvement at those early stages and that secondary stage, which is the second blue star from last. I know I'm talking in code a little bit, but I think you know what I mean. So we've gotten far along in our collaboration with APD. I can happily report that I think this is a good collaboration, and that this is one of the ways that we not only save manpower with CPOA, that would have been an incredible use of time to investigate something we knew didn't need to be investigated. And on the piece about the complete fabrication that went out from the CPOA office, of course, that was part of what the transparency working with APD itself, we had to acknowledge that we had done that, and that's why the problem never got solved, because we had put out a letter to citizens saying, problem solved, and it wasn't. So I think we've resolved that. Of course, we'll keep looking at it, but at least the letter can go out to citizens, and we will bring that to you, this special case, when we're able to bring the 33 administratively closed cases. We'll also be bringing this one to you to say, can we send this letter out? And of course, Paul, Mr. Scotchapole, Mr. Harness, and I, and whoever else is involved, will craft that letter carefully. And you will see it, and I have promised Assistant Chief Huntsman that he will see it also, because we're all in this together on this one. So, sorry, I had so much to tell you, but I really felt like it was important that you saw all the details along the way.
Well, thank you.
Thank you.
Director Harness, did you have any comment?
Right, and can Ed, would you, sorry, Mr. Harness, would you, I meant to turn it back over to you, thank you, Leonard. Talk to us about why we got bound up with notification to complainants and how some of the suggestions you have for solving that problem.
Yes, Chair Wiggs and Board Member McCoy. During the discussions at the CRC, the question came up about notification and per your policies and procedures as a board, allowing the complainant an opportunity to address the board regarding their case being reviewed at that meeting. A review of the policies and procedures in my mind, and as we discussed it with Attorney Baker, was makes it an obligation to allow that to happen. And so, because this is an unprecedented procedure, a process needs to be put in place in order to do the notification properly, to allow the complainant an opportunity to come and address the body. Some problems that we see as an agency are that the actual disposition will not have been decided until the board actually reviews the case and gives a disposition. So therefore, what would the citizen actually be commenting on because they don't have a finished product yet? We surmise that you adopted the rule because there were so many rules floating around in the ethos that you happened to pick that one from an older set of rules, and it became it was adopted into your rules. Our suggestion at the agency is that your rules be amended in such a way that the comment be allowed after the disposition of the review and the disposition of the case instead of before. That way, the notices will have gone out as a part of the process. So then they would subsequently be allowed to comment, and it does not interfere with their appellate rights or their reconsideration ability, which is also laid out in your policies and procedures.
Thank you. That makes a lot of sense. Thank you. Anything else? Any other comment or anything for Dr.
Do we need to move to amend our rules in order to do exactly that?
Chair Waits and Board Member Ring, you would need to set that as an agenda item so that you can take action upon it.
Okay, fair enough.
So if we can get that on the agenda straight off next month, then we can, well, I don't know, can we look at things? Can we look at these 33 cases at least? Can we, and add others if we, so choose?
I believe so. I'm sorry, the Chair Waits and Board Member McCoy, yes, you would be able to conduct your review, and then subsequently, once disposition has been decided, the notice would go out and then allow the citizen or the complainant to comment at a subsequent meeting.
Even if we haven't voted, we can't vote on the policy until next meeting, we can still do both at the same meeting.
Yeah, it has to be on the agenda.
That's what I'm saying. If we vote on it next month, can we still do the action next month? Can we still do that? Or do we?
Chair Waits and Board Member McCoy, I believe you could, because it would be sequential at that point. You could certainly do the review,
vote first, is that all?
The vote would take place, the disposition would happen. If you then have the amendment in place, then we can act upon that amendment and then notify as a part of the regular notification, simply add a notice portion that if they choose to, they can address the board at a subsequent meeting. We'll add it as we delineate their reconsideration and appellate rights. We'll simply add that as a part of the notice.
Thank you. Thank you. Any other comment or any questions? Thank you, Dr. McCullough. All right. Dr. Brown, you have
Okay. We did have a policy meeting on the 20th of October, and we spent all our time talking about the internal affairs policy number 2-05. We ended up making some suggestions as we went through the policy, and Mr. Harness then and Mark had a meeting with one of the monitors when they were in town last week, and then subsequently I was involved as well in a meeting with two of the monitors and internal affairs, and we went over a lot of the things that were part of this particular policy that had become sticky points. It was really nice to get them resolved, I thought. I know the policy isn't official yet, but I really feel with the email we got today from John Gallegos, that it really looks like that we're moving along, and of course we can all honor and feel good about. So that was good, and you may want to say more about that. I don't know, Mr. Ernst, would you like to comment?
Chair Waits and Board Member Brown, yes, just a couple of extra points. The latest draft of 2-05 has been circulated, and they would like, the APD would like to have it finalized for submission to the monitor tomorrow. I did distribute a copy of it to Board Member Brown. In addition, Mr. Slauson informed me late this afternoon that you all have received your invitations for the Power DMS that will allow each of you to review policy and comment on policy during the comment period. So each of you have received an individual invitation with instructions on how to access that information. In addition, there are a couple of members of our agency that will have the same access. So you will be able to review all the policies as they are being reviewed by the constituents. Perhaps this is the best time to sort of address the discussions with 2-05. We did have Attorney Baker and I did have a meeting with the monitor on last Tuesday. And then subsequently we had a meeting with Internal Affairs, the monitor, and the agency on Thursday, in which 205 was addressed as well. Not only ensuring that the agency is getting the notices we believe that we're entitled to explicitly instead of implicitly, but also clearing up some SOPs relating to the agency investigators' access to investigations, active investigations, and the requirement that our investigators accompany the internal affairs investigators at all of these scenes that are called for our agency to investigate. We have had a great deal of cooperation over the last couple of weeks, and we have, I believe, made some very significant progress as it pertains to what the agency needs so that we can fulfill our role for the citizens of Albuquerque. And I don't think I have anything else at this point. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Director.
one other thing about 2-05 is that the definition of retaliation isn't listed yet. And I don't, it's on our agenda again tonight to pass, I hope, pass the definition that we would like. And there's no definition of any type in 2-05. So I think we still have to work on that, but that's the only piece that I'm aware of.
So what we can do is for our purposes, approve or vote on the definition that we're going to be presenting, okay? And I think we all had copies of that.
Pass them out again. And
now this is the definition we're going to be presenting to the their committee, correct?
right. And this is the way I'm looking at this point in time. Looking at the definitions that are listed there, they are shorter by a long shot than the definition that we would like to have for a retaliation policy. My feeling actually is that we pass this policy because I think it would be a good standalone policy, but I'm not sure that we need to ask for a standalone policy at this point in time, because the review that they did last year, that Mrs. Hammer and is it Commander Gallegos? I don't know what his rank is, but anyhow, that they did last year did not show a major problem. So I was thinking that we'll have the policy as we want it in hand, passed, and can use possibly Mr. Harris and Mr. Slauson or Lieutenant Garcia can work together to take at least part of the definition that would make it clear in the policy under the definition section that's going forward now. That's sort of cumbersome language, I know. I guess I'm going to ask first that we pass the policy for a standalone policy, and then see if part of it can be worked. If we can't have them accept the whole policy in that definition section, that we ask them to accept part of it.
Okay. Why don't we do this? Why don't we just vote on the actual policy?
Yes, please.
And the other part, if they
part two.
Part two, if they decide to amend their current policy, then we'll have it in place. Okay. So, can I get a motion to accept this?
I move that we accept this definition of retaliation as written.
Second.
Okay, it's been motioned and seconded that we accept the anti-retaliation policy as written. Are there any questions? Can I get a vote of a verbal vote?
Yes.
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 It's unanimous. Thank you, Dr. Brown. Is there anything else?
Yeah, really. The definition section now, I mean, I would like to suggest that this go forward to the definition section of 2-05. I know that they are nearly finished working on it. Like today they're really going to try to send it forward to DOJ. I would like to suggest that if they can't incorporate the whole thing, that they incorporate at least something in the form of a definition in 205. That's my motion.
Is that a motion?
Yes, it is.
Okay. All right. That's a pretty long motion. Can you repeat that?
It's all or none.
Okay.
No, it isn't.
You made a motion to have them or present to them or hope that they would accept a portion of this
If they
proposal.
cannot accept the entire policy, they at least accept a portion of it in the policy that's going to be going forward.
Okay. So that's a motion. Can I get a second?
I'll second that.
Okay, it's been motioned and second that we present this, and hopefully they will accept partial
Parts, at least
parts
part
of
of
this
it.
proposal. Can I get a yes vote? All in favor?
Yes.
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 Yes?
A vote? Yes.
Yes,
No?
sure,
Yes.
yes.
Okay. All right. It's unanimous. All right. Anything else or any questions for Dr. Brown?
The only other comment I had to make is that, the use of force policy is certainly going through with APD, and I know it's quite changed from when we saw it, and I don't know whether Mr. Hardis has seen it or not. But I guess I just would like to go on record as saying that I think it would be nice if the Police Oversight Board or our office was able to see that policy. So just going on record.
I know it's a little late to clarify, but just let me, there's a lot of great definitions of retaliation out there, and so they're easy enough to come by, really. You're simply suggesting that they, regardless of whether this particular language is included, that some form of anti-retaliation policy is included.
Yes, the definition, there's a huge definition section in IA. It must have 25 definitions. Retaliation is not a movement.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right. We're going to move on to reports from the city staff. The reason we're moving on is so that you don't have to stay here all night while we have lunch and all this stuff. So can we get a report? Mr. Hardis, I'm going to move you down. Can we get a report from APD, please? And I'm sorry, we're going to limit. Jeez. Yeah, we're going to, you can leave, Mark, if you need to.
Okay.
I'll just rush you off, Mark.
I'll listen to
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Chairman Waits, board members. For the month of October, APD dispatched 42,518 calls for service. We received 8 internal cases. One of those was investigated by Internal Affairs and 7 by the area commands. We administratively closed 0. We also mediated 0 cases. Total internal cases completed for October were 11. That includes 5 vehicle accidents, 1 Internal Affairs investigated case, and 5 area command cases. Discipline imposed for the internal cases in October were 1 verbal reprimand, 8 letters of reprimand, 1 termination, and 1 that resulted in no disciplinary action. As requested in a previous meeting, the SOPs violated involved in those cases included administrative orders related to preventable vehicle accidents, our code of conduct, our general orders regarding working chiefs overtime and the amount of hours you can work in a week. That also 1 chief's overtime special order that went out allowing officers to work over the allotted time under the general orders, and then city rules and regs, which also was related to our code of conduct. Pending cases for October were 7, and I stand for any questions.
First of all, I appreciate the information you're starting to give us now. It's starting to make sense. A lot of the stuff that you're reporting, and one of the things I've seen is that, at least you drive the street, this number shows up every time, every month. It's a huge number. And I say that as jest, but, you know, they might need to learn how to drive a little better. Any comments or questions?
Would you just summarize, I'm sorry, the bit about hours worked again, and how many of these are tied up with either overtime or not, as I understand it? Are those under conduct? Is that what that is?
So Chairman Waits, board member, no, that was only one case that that was the SOP or special order that was used. And an officer is not allowed to exceed 25 hours of overtime in a week for chief's overtime. However, under certain circumstances, such as during Blue Fiesta or possibly during the state fair, that amount is lifted, or the cap is lifted for those months.
So that's under general orders, is that what that one is, or is it special orders?
There was one general order, 1-11-2, and then also special order that went out, 15-69.
Okay. Thank you.
I'd just like to say thank you for the color graph. I'm visual, and that helps a great deal. Thank you.
Any other questions?
Yeah, I'm just curious about internal affairs relationship with the personnel bureau of the city. How does internal affairs relate to the personnel department?
Chairman Waits, board member Brown, we are held accountable for all of our city rules and regs. If an individual, if we find that they do violate city rules and regs, we actually go to our manual and pull those up, and we can utilize those the same that we would our own SOP sanctions.
But there's no back and forth discussion. The personnel department operates entirely independently of ABD. I mean, there's no review or conversations that go back and forth. I'm just curious.
So, Chairman Waits and Board Member Brown, we do work with the personnel office on our cases. Yes, they do review our cases for our findings.
And is there an appeal process or anything that happens?
And I'm going to have Natalie DeVilla answer that for you because she deals with them directly.
Thank you.
Good evening, Chairman Waits, Board Member Brown. Yes, we do have communication with the personnel. We talked to Bobby Griego. He is our point of contact. We are in the process of changing our forms to match theirs. If there is an appeal, it goes through the APOA or if it's a civilian, it would be their union. And then it would go to our hearing officer, which would be their commander or division head.
Thank you.
Is that what you were looking for?
No, not quite, but I don't know how to ask the question either, so I'll just let it go there.
Okay.
Maybe some other board member wants to ask about the relationship between the two departments.
Any other questions? All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. City Council?
Chairman Waits, board members, the only piece of information I wanted to relate to the board, board member Amano McCoy mentioned in her subcommittee report, but at the October 19th City Council meeting, they did unanimously pass the CPOA's policies and procedures. Other than that, I'm available to answer any questions.
Any questions? Matt? Thank you, and thank you for passing that for us. We'll move along now. Mark, do you have anything before you go? Okay. All right, we're going to take a lunch break right now. Nothing. city attorney's not here.
I'm just asking if we should ask if it's on.
City attorney's not here, nor anyone from the mayor's office. Thank you. You know what? Since that's the, yeah.
John, wait, so what other business do we have before we adjourn?
Yeah.
We just have other business and adjourn.
Yeah, and we can adjourn the whole. Is there any other business that we might need to discuss briefly? Motion?
That motion to adjourn meeting.
I second.
It's been motion and a second that we adjourn the meeting. Does anyone else have anything before we close?
I know that the food was brought in because I saw it.
Yeah.
So we probably ought to honor eating it.
That's what we're doing. Director here.
Chair Waits, do you want my report?
Yes, I'm sorry. We're ready to go eat, but we'll take your report.
I will rush through it.
Okay, thank you.
Chair Waits, fellow board. Just a few comments on the agency and what we're accomplishing. First off, I want to thank Paul Scotchapole for his admirable work in my stead. I want to thank the staff for pulling together and working well while things were in transition. As far as outreach efforts from the agency, I did attend Dr. Ginger's talk for Counselor, that was provided by Counselor Gibson. I attended the Northeast Command CPC meeting last Tuesday, and I did conduct an interview on Channel 7. Apparently, Paul saw it, I haven't seen it, but it was encouraging the public to come out and give us comment, as we've had this evening, to help guide us in our quest to serve the city. As it relates to the data analyst position, just before this meeting, I received a batch of qualified applicants from the previous listing. So I will be reviewing those to determine whether or not I'm going to reopen that position. On a side note, as it relates to data, I met with Professor Zhang from the University of New Mexico, who pledged that he would help us analyze any data that we weren't able to do in-house, to answer any questions or do any analysis that we thought might aid the agency. He says, if you have the data and you have a question, I'll help you get the answer. We are now, the agency is now part of POEO. POEO is the project management system, which the settlement agreement is the city and ABQ are using to manage that project. We are now part of POEO, so therefore we can submit the steps that we've taken and provide information to the monitors that we are in compliance with certain aspects and certain paragraphs. As I mentioned before, all board members now have access to Power DMS. The compliance manager asked me to relay to the board to make sure that you file your ride-along certificates with the command staff so that they can account for those ride-alongs. And two other things. I would like the board to consider a reconfiguration of the subcommittees and turn those into working groups and have them function as such so that there are no public meeting obligations, no minutes, no agendas. Simply the subcommittees do the work that's necessary as they're tasked by the board. I believe that would comply with open meetings laws as I've reviewed them. And I think it would be certainly much more productive and would add to the flexibility to allow the members to participate in a more full manner. And last, I am moving full forward with incorporating mediation as a part of our intake and our complaint process per the ordinance. I understand that there's conflicts with what can and what cannot be mediated as stated in the settlement agreement, but when I discussed this with the monitor, they assured me that they would go back to the writers of the settlement agreement and get a better definition of what can and what cannot be mediated. The ordinance says that everything should be mediated first, yet the settlement agreement says that only you can only mediate things that are not considered to be misconduct, but if you review the definition of misconduct in the settlement agreement, it is essentially everything. But what we're going to do is we're going to move forward with that. I've met with the city's ADR team. They will be prepared to offer mediation for complaints that I review at intake and I believe are appropriate for mediation. We believe that it will happen on shift for day and swing, but the late shift would have to come in off of shift to do this. But while I'm moving forward with the big picture to have this done, I will not move forward without the cooperation of APD and APOA, which I'm meeting with next week. But it's important to incorporate that, I believe, not only to live up to the ordinance as it's been drafted, but aid in community healing and provide caseload relief for the investigators so that they can concentrate on a different variety of cases. And that's all I have. I stand for questions.
Director, I think the mediation is a great idea. Any questions for Director?
I do have a question, Director Harness. Is the ride-along paperwork not getting, is it area commands that are having difficulty getting those signed papers from us, or is it after we submit them to area command, they're not getting to the right place? Do you know?
Chair Waits, Board Member Albuquerque, I do not know. This was simply a side note asked of me by the compliance manager. I assured him I would pass it along.
What's happening? They've got a new person collecting that data, and the information that we gave previously hasn't gotten to you, and I think that's what he's asking for.
I mean,
just to fulfill his.
Sergeant Johnson has always been the recipient of that information, as far as I know. So, but it just keeps coming up. So I'm wondering now if we continue to have the same problem, or if we should be doing something a little bit differently, and where we should go for that, because it continues to, it comes up monthly probably.
Anecdotally, I did a ride-along a couple of weeks ago, and they handed me a piece of paper that I had to sign saying I wouldn't sue APD. And so that got filed with the Northeast Command. So I'm assuming that's the paperwork we're talking about.
That's the paperwork.
Right.
It's just a question of why isn't it getting to the people it needs to get to. And I'd really like to suggest that we put the working meetings language on the next agenda. I'd really like to have a chance to vote on that, if we could get that on. Thank you for that. Sorry, one more thing. In terms of mediation, yay, we're so glad you're here. And I just want to point out again how proactive APD has been in this process, also helping us get things done before it turns into something that it doesn't have to turn into. We just have to be really cognizant of the fact that I've not only just asked for help, but they've been incredibly proactive about working with us.
May I ask a technical question? I just got the email about Power DMS, and I plan to take a look at it. What does one do with it in a practical sense?
Chair Waits, we're going to ring. My understanding is that it will essentially act as like a listserv, so that once a policy has been put out for review, you will receive an alert, and you'll have 15 days to review that policy and add any notes or comments that you want to regarding the policy.
Okay.
Mr. Harness, I have a question. It's my understanding that the DOJ will be putting out a report for the first part of the work that they've been doing. And my question is, will the work that we've been doing as a board be submitted within that report? And if so, who is putting that information together?
Chair Waits, Board Member Baca. To my knowledge, they haven't, the monitors have not decided whether or not it will be an official report or whether or not it will simply be an action plan at this point. As it relates to your work, it is our job, my job, to submit the information that pertains to your role for compliance, such as the settlement agreement stated that there had to be a diverse boards seated, and that was a simple piece. We pointed the monitor to the website so that he could review all of your backgrounds and your talents. The monitor then notes that, and it is noted as being in compliance.
Because it was my understanding that we had 6 months to comply with a lot of other pieces, not just putting the board together. And is that going to be reflected in this first report? Because I know a lot of citizens were very interested in learning when, apparently it's going to be on the website once it gets done. You're smiling at me. Is that not going to happen?
Chair Waits, no, I'm smiling because that was a constant refrain from Dr. Ginger that the report would be online.
Yes.
All of the training requirements and all of the things that were required of you, the board, per any paragraph in the settlement agreement, was reviewed by our agency, and we either provided the information or pointed the monitor to where they could find the information in order to show that you are in compliance.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Can we get that motion?
Motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Second. Motion and second that we adjourn. Thank you all. Thank you for the comments. We appreciate you. We need more of that.
More community comments. Yes.